Hey Juan,
Hey Terence, how are you, man?
doing all right. I'm actually talking to Jesse on Slack, so I should probably ping him.
Slack?
Yeah, just work Slack.
Oh, okay, got it. There it is.
Hey, I totally got distracted by something else.
Just
That's
navigating
okay.
all the S3 buckets.
Yep, you know it. Just tracking petabytes of data. Uh, anyway,
Cool. Do do we fix the problem with the uh dock?
I don't think so, unless Terrence
All
has
right.
more info than I do.
No, I'm trying to track down someone in CNCF, but let me follow up with them. They were out sick last time.
Oh, the owner is CNCF. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean, we can just kind of start casually or something.
Yeah.
Without a doc. Well, we've been doing that recently, and it's been fine so far. I mean, it would be nice to get back to documenting stuff, but yeah. Yeah. I guess we want to talk about exec environment. That's kind of the talk of the town right now. We've got the RFC, which has been merged, and we've got two spec PRs that Juan's been working on.
Yes,
And I put
that's
some
correct.
comments on one of them yesterday, I think.
Did you? Okay, I need to take a look on that. Cool. So the first step we need is actually the spec changes to be included. I will try to take a look today at the end of the day to see what's missing
Yeah, the main one I had was on the Buildpacks spec. When I went
on
to
the.
go uh, kind of implement this and peek at stuff, I noticed that we put the exec environment uh, key underneath
Mm-hmm.
target
Mm-hmm.
instead of underneath build pack, um, as the RFC describes it. And I think the RFC is more correct. And so I wanted to at least have that discussion
Oh.
because I think it being under target, I don't think makes sense. Like your targets aren't going to switch exec environments like your Linux versus, ARM versus AMD. I don't think we need different execution environments for those. So it should be the level up, I think. It should be its own table.
Oh, it's too specific then.
Yeah. I think it's just attached. We added the key one level too deep.
Oh, okay.
We, as in
Oh,
we in the spec.
Yes, in
no.
the spec PR that's open. Yeah, and I called it out there, so it should be easy to find.
Oh,
Um,
now I'm
yep,
confused
and
where
we
I put
also
it on the implementation. Okay.
yeah, I
Uh,
actually don't know what you did on the implementation. Uh, yeah, I wasn't when my life cycle PR that I spun up yesterday matches the spec for what it's worth. So in my testing, I made a build pack that put the exec environment at the build pack table, not the target
okay.
table. So I did it the way the RFC did it, assuming that we fixed the spec because I think the spec is the part that's wrong. Like I think we may have
Okay.
implemented it. Maybe I implemented it the way that I think the RFC said to do it. So hopefully we can just make the
Yeah.
spec align.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, I did it following the spec, the RFC.
Yeah.
Then I wrote the spec.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So I
yeah,
think we just
probably it's a
transition it
mistake on this.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, got it. I will take a look on that. Good. Um, awesome. I need to take a look also on your branch,
Hmm.
and I will try to update my branch on pack and try to point into this one and
Cool.
give
And
it
I
a
did
try.
that. Yeah, I
You
did that
already
as
did it?
well. Well, I didn't fix your branch up, but I started from your branch and just to prove that my branch worked. So I didn't
Okay.
like update. I didn't bring it forward on pack or anything,
Okay,
but
okay, that's okay. But at
yeah,
the end, does it work? Or did it work?
yes, hmm,
Yes?
yeah, hmm,
Okay, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Everything
Yes.
seemed to have worked. I had to do a couple things, right? Like I had to because I introduced a new spec version for both Buildpacks and
Uh-huh.
Lifecycle.
Uh-huh.
So I basically had to hack in support for 0.15 in pack as well, but I didn't want to
Okay.
commit that because like I wasn't really sure how you normally do it.
Okay, got it.
So I didn't do that. So there was a little bit of hacking there because obviously you have to make pack okay with understanding 0.15 in the negotiation with Lifecycle, right?
Yeah, and I think I still have something from the 014 that it's not yet implemented on back, I think.
The O
Uh
14.
I think so. Yeah, but it's
Okay.
yeah, it's something, it's some feature that it's there, but I'm not sure if we really want to support it on back. But I do remember that I did that exercise to check what was missing from back against platform 014, I think.
Okay.
But okay, that's okay. So I can take a look on the spec PR. I will also update my pack PR. There are some conflicts there. The latest changes emerged. I need just to
Okay.
update it. And if the spec PR move forward, then I think that I already have good things on pack to release a 039.
Cool.
So will be also awesome to include this one.
So
When are
I
you
want
planning on doing that?
go ahead.
Oh, 39.
I believe that I can update this thing this week. So probably if we already have it merged and everything, probably next week I can just release a release candidate and we can give it a try. Usually I'm doing that on Fridays, which is not a good practice, but
I mean, RCs are fine on Fridays, right?
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Those don't break
But
production.
yeah, I will try to. Oh no, wait! I do have to repeat my talk today online. It's another cloud, another CNCF event for a community in Pereira here in Colombia, and a
Are you just doing
former
your Columbia tour?
no, but people that used to be on VMware Colombia are in this community on CNCF. So this guy is like organizing this. It's like a meetup or something like that. So he told me, "Hey, did you have a talk?" And then I said, "Yes, I'm gonna have a talk on." He said on the Kubernetes Colombian Day. Can you give it a try next week and 2 weeks? And I said, "Yes, if I already have the material, that's okay for me." So I will be doing that on my 6:30. So probably tomorrow I can take a look on the spec, PR, and the other stuff. But I think next week we can have a pack release candidate. I already have a bunch of things. I would like to include this one.
Nice. Um, yeah, when I was doing the lifecycle side, it seemed it seemed fine. Like, it took me a minute to kind of get the different places implemented. Like we use exec environment for build pack selection, which I guess I kind of forgot about in the RFC. I knew we used it for like processes, like attaching it to processes and stuff like that, and uh, and then also for just the build packs knowing that exec environment is there so that they can, change their processes, their internal processes as well as their actual launch toml processes. But yeah, so we do it for the group skipping and stuff like that too, which seems to work fine. Yeah, and I think uh, the hardest thing to kind of like fit in my head is how this works in like a builder where you've got a bunch of different build packs that have different build pack API versions. And only like one of them has exec environment support, right? So yeah, so I
Uh,
think I got all that right, but like that's when we go to start hammering on like pack and stuff like that, and making it easy for someone to test out. Like that's the sort of stuff that I would want to poke around a little bit with, like create a custom builder with some different build pack versions and make sure that like it did what you expected when you ran it with like
mhm.
exec environment equals test. If the build packs are too old, then it shouldn't change anything basically. But if one of them's new and in its own group, then it should get skipped. And if it's part of another group, then it should still get skipped. It's
Well,
confusing to think about, but I think it all works.
yeah.
Should we do something different in the spec for that, or do you think the behavior
I
spec is
don't
the
think
right behavior?
so. Yeah, I think the behavior's right, but like that's kind of why I call it out is like it feels right when I look at it and write it, and everything that I've built also makes sense. Like I'm like, okay, it skipped it. This makes sense to me. But I want to make sure it makes sense to someone else who isn't in the code, like reading it. And so, I yeah, explore when it lands, right? And kind of poke around and make sure that it did what you expect, because it could be I've convinced myself that it makes sense. And so I would like to make sure that it makes sense to someone else.
Do you, I'm just going through the spec PRs just now. I figured I'd just turn this into a work session. Do you have thoughts on this particular comment from Natalie on the build pack side? So basically, it's the one where she is asking if you change execs between build runs, what happens?
Let's see. I think you linked somewhere else. You linked to something about like stars and
Oh,
prod, maybe.
I think it's
Which
the one above that.
oh, okay, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm confused.
Here, I'll just share my screen, I think.
Thanks.
Desktop capture. What? Does it just share the whole screen? That's cool. Did that work?
Yes.
This one.
Okay.
Do you think
That's
we
something
should
different.
fetch images? I haven't gone through the platform side, but do we fetch images based on their exec environment for previous image?
We do not.
And if not, should we?
Um, the only thing we could do is throw it away, right? Like because we only have the previous image as like a single value, right? So we're not like querying a registry or anything. So if someone switches from test to production, the best we could do is basically ignore that image, like act as if it wasn't there, I think. And
Does
you'd have
that
to
mean
do
the
it on the
previous
image.
image would like, would we expect it to bloat then?
Um, what do you mean? I guess I'm trying to figure out what that means. Like you're producing the same image every time. Why would it bloat?
Well, I guess like as a build pack author, would I create a separate layer for, I can't really though, right?
Correct. Yeah, you can't. The layers themselves are not exec environment specific, right?
So in this case, like let's say I was doing this on a platform like Heroku, does that mean I would probably not share exec stuff between prod and like I basically would not share ideally caching stuff between a test run and a production run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
so yeah, I
and
think
so
it'll be up to the
the platform would intentionally, like, so a platform could set a different. I think when I'm trying to remember, like it's been a while since we talked about the
yeah,
RFC. I feel
Yeah.
like I remember this coming up, and I think the answer was you should do a separate like name for you. We weren't
yeah,
going to try to magically do a thing here.
yeah. We give the build pack the power to do whatever they need to do. So if the build pack wants to create like an npm dash test versus an npm dash production, then that would allow them to be able to safely switch between and also know when
Yeah,
to
share
delete
the
it.
same image.
Yeah.
I think part of it was, didn't we decide that the platform, we weren't going to try to do smart things in the platform? So, like in theory, like if you were a Roku or even like a pack, you would expect the either the platform to do it or the user to essentially do like test, right? Like foo, like maybe foo is the image
Uh-huh.
production image, and then you do like foo dash test for the
Yeah.
test one, and then you are manually segregating, or like if you were another CMB platform that was using it, like you could do that on your end if you knew that was like a common thing and you
Yeah.
wanted to, you had another way to associate like those apps together, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's what we said. Yeah, I think the platform's going to have to either do its own magic, but
The
not the
platform or the
lifecycle
user, right?
platform. Yeah, exactly. But not yeah, it's not the lifecycle platform and probably not Pack. Like Pack's already kind of in the it is a tool, place where, we don't get too wild with our assumptions about your images, how they get named or tagged. We don't do any magic. We do exactly what
Yeah.
you say. Same with our like Docker manifest manipulation, right? And so I think this
Um,
fits that too.
that does mean execm is not generally very useful, but I think it is useful if you decide to copy the cache like on first build. Like if a platform wanted to copy a cache on first build, knowing where it came from could be useful.
Right. So would you want to change anything with that statement that you were saying? Like what
I
would
don't
make
think so. I'm just trying to work through like,
yeah.
does even having it in metadata help you as a build pack author?
Um I think it does.
Yeah.
Specifically if you switch, right? Like and keep the
Yeah.
same image name. Like I think it just gives you the ability to like you can still if you were install if your job as a build pack is to install Node version 20, then like uh and maybe you install it with debug symbols or maybe you don't, then like you knowing that is useful, but
Right. Without having, like, in theory, you could know because you could set other
mhm.
metadata yourself, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So I think it's nice to have the information, but in that case, if you're like installing the same version of Node, whether and you switch from a test exec environment to a production exec environment, they can still reuse it. If since they know it's the same bits. But if it was just named, npm packages, and they probably would want to switch. They would want to dump the cache.
yeah. Sept, Jericho.
Hello. Been a little while.
Jericho.
Yeah. What brings you to a working group?
I have,
Finally have free time again?
yeah, I've been trying to get here, but I always remember the meeting, like, at the end of the meeting, and sometimes you guys wrap up early. Um, I mean, I wanted to bring some stuff up, but I don't want to like change the agenda here. So I'm kind of listening in until you guys are done talking about these things.
We're just kind of doing a working-ish session. But if you want to
Okay,
talk about
cool.
some stuff, we can circle back to it afterwards.
Okay, sounds good. Um, so on the Paqueto front, like Juan, you asked me when we would have multi-arch ready. Uh,
Yeah, because I was going to give a talk and I was talking about multi-arc and I was the one that I promoted was Heroku because
mhm.
it's working and I just wanted to give feedback to people like, hey, we have Heroku, it's already there. You can use it if you want to build your ARM stuff. And also Paketo is working on it and have some issues with some build packs and stuff. So I just want to give some, because most of the people in the talk didn't know about Buildpacks, so they got very excited about it, and so I'm gonna repeat the talk today. So if you have a good information for me, that would be awesome because I will promote also Paqueto.
Yeah, so you can promote. I mean, we're gonna get it done by the end of the year. I mean, like we had to just update a lot of tooling to make it possible to publish multi-arch build packs, but like a lot of that hard work is now done. And
Okay.
like Python is going to be done hopefully today. Another maintainer is working on Node.js. So it's like a matter of going through and updating stuff. There are some build packs that like we don't really have any active maintainers for. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
probably I'm on the steering committee right now. So probably what I will end up doing is just putting in the work to just get everything updated. So it's multi-arch. And then if we're not going to support it going forward, that's fine. And we can just kind of change the status of certain build packs to be like, you know, not maintained. And if people want to use them, they can contribute.
Which
Um,
ones, by the way?
uh,
PHP, I think.
I think PHP. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many repos that it's hard to keep track of them. But like, I primarily am
Okay.
focused on, well, Java's already actively maintained, but I'm looking at Python, Go, and Node.js. And then there's web servers too, which is also actively maintained. But like,
Okay.
I think .NET. Sorry, my cat is over here crying.
Mhm.
There are just languages where I've never touched them before, so
Okay.
you know. But it would be nice to have everything at the same. Before we make any big changes, it would be nice to have everything just be working one way. And if it's all multi-arch, that would be great.
Okay. Got it. Awesome.
So yeah, so that's just a quick update on Paketo. The thing I actually wanted to talk about was rebasing build pack produced layers. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if this has already been brought up
We've talked
before.
about this a million times.
Yeah, you talked about this. Okay, I'm new to
But
this discussion,
we
so I
haven't
don't know.
actually done anything with it,
We
but we have
we've
talked
talked
about
about
it.
it before. There's also, for what it's worth, interest in some folks who aren't active main like that are like more distance from the project, but they're consumers of Buildpacks at Heroku, right? That also are interested in it. There's a pattern that has been developing where it's just like in order to do something, it's convenient to use a build pack to basically like encapsulate some type of kind of proxy or web server kind of thingy. And they want a way to, because it's maintained by Heroku and it doesn't make sense to put it below the seam necessarily, like in the base image. It's not like a, thing maintained by the Linux vendor, right? It's a thing maintained by Heroku. So it's basically like, I think the use case for the Heroku side is like you have a binary that is maintained by Heroku. You can make your own promises about compatibility and other things, and it's like a thing that's potentially independent. So it's not like I'm installing some npm package, right? It's like I'm installing a thing totally outside of some packaging system that the user's gonna have, but like I want it to be part of the build, right? Um, so like one of the use cases for us is like take a you know, Spring, whatever, like Rails generic agnostic like web server. We want to be able to MCPify it by sticking some type of our own MCP thing that you would use to proxy in front, and then it can basically take open API spec and turn that into like make any web server like an MCP server, right? That you can then host on Heroku. Like um And so it's like, okay, there's a handful of ways you could do that. Like you could for sure do like on-platform stuff and maintain a separate web server and run it. But it's probably easier from a scale and whatever other perspective. It just like runs inside the like Dino pod, whatever container, right? Um, but then now when you do it, like the customer without rebasable layers, like you can rebase the operating system, but now you can't, like the only way to update is if the customer does a new build, right?
Yeah. So the motivation for me asking this is that like we use rebasing for patching vulnerabilities in the run image, which is really nice. But we have been bitten by standard lib vulns. And so then Paketo ships binaries in containers. And so then we have to go and rebuild the app because we can't rebase the layers that are provided by the build packs. At least we can't rebase them easily. But when I was looking at the layers, I was using Dive to inspect one of the images that we built, and it looks like the binaries are in separate layers. So if that's the case, I imagine that we could, maybe tell Pack, like this is, hypothetical thinking, we could tell Pack go rebase this layer. And if we give it some kind of information like layer ID or whatever, image reference, then it would somehow be able to say, okay, I'm going to go and rebase this layer.
Yeah.
That's the motivation where I'm coming from.
Yeah, we talked about something similar before. In our case, it's kind of like you obviously have to, unlike rebase, which is like, you're coming from version 0 and going to version 1 or whatever. Um, it's expected to be the exact same app image, right?
Mhm.
In this case that you're kind of talking about, someone else would have already had to build the golden layer effectively, right? Like, version node with patched or whatever, right? And so, yeah, I think it would be interesting if we wanted to have like a lifecycle rebase, but instead of passing like, in addition to passing the previous image v0, you pass in like, a almost a companion list of like either images or a manifest of like this layer digest can be safely replaced to this layer digest. Like you kind of want to
Yeah.
have sort of a very structured way, I think, of being like, yes, these layers are safe to replace. But I don't
Yeah.
know. That's kind of how
Like,
I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. I was going to say that, like, so basically, as a build pack author, if I'm publishing images to a registry, I'd probably also then need to publish a rebasable layer image to the registry at the same
Or the
time.
platform would need to like keep a golden version of that app, like, that isn't built with unsafe customer code. Like someone has to build, an Arch, an ARM 64 and an AMD 64 and a whatever S390, whatever it is. Someone's gonna have to build all of these different layers and keep them somewhere that is accessible to every person who does like a build on that platform, right? Because it's not in that customer's repo. Like if you've got like a bunch of different registries and everything, if you're not just using like Docker daemon builds, then like you've got to kind of think about the access strategy too. Like where do you get these layers from? Like how are they publicly accessible? And I don't know that we want the burden to be on the build pack author, but it's not. And I don't know if I would trust a build pack author to, are we really going to ask every build pack author who does like a node build pack if they become popular enough that they're going to basically have to publish built versions of node somewhere for us to kind of rebase from? I don't know.
I mean, I have thoughts on this, but Terrence, did you want to say something?
I guess I was just wondering how source independent. There's obviously some independence of the layer. Like how, like I feel like anything that's like super intertwined with the source code becomes harder. Obviously, the example of like the runtime is like you need to know that it is a Node app, right? There. So like it's not like a clean break. I know for like a lot of our use cases, it's just like I guess like to some degree I was thinking about not only the thing Jesse was saying, but I almost wonder you probably want some type of path, whether that's pack or something else, that executes part of lifecycle to actually build the layer to make it convenient, right? Like if you can imagine whether, however, like we want to do packaging, whether that's like in the registry where you store your build packs, so it fetches it from that and you keep those up to date, or it's like, like somewhere else. But it seems like a build pack author, nothing stops them from constructing that layer by hand, but that sounds gross. to have to like basically do the right incantations versus
Well,
like,
build packs can work on multiple stacks though too, right? So it gets
yeah,
like super complicated if you've got like a single build pack, and if you're distributing like a single binary that is like supposed to work across all Linux, that's fine. But if like
yeah, because
you're actually
potentially if you do it
building
like
in a build pack, yeah,
per distro per architecture kind of
yep,
explosion of stuff. But it does seem not crazy to be like, okay, like if we were to go down this route, it potentially could just be inside of Pack platform because that's also how we do authoring stuff, but like a way for someone to write, execute and that's the part where I think it has to be like, it doesn't have to be 100%. Ideally, it's 100% independent, but that's probably not reality. But it has to be like probably fairly independent where you can run it fairly well without a bunch of like, because you need to be able to run it without the source code of the app, right? I think.
yes, yeah, you need to
Yes.
be able to rebase without like rebase the whole scaling for rebases without the
Yeah.
source, right? And without the we've got customers that don't have the source anymore, and like you still want to rebase their stuff and keep them as up to date as you reasonably can, even if you can't access their source for some reason.
Um, but you might like, I think I would caveat that even just like the use case you said of like maybe there's a way you could send in a specific build plan or something, right? Where it's like the source code doesn't like that thing you can have like build plan stuff in, but you probably can't make a thing that like super like like reads the source code because you're trying to make this thing rebasable, right? And I think that's the property that the base images have is they are like source independent essentially, and that allows us to basically do a thing like in one place and then be able to rebase it, right? And I think that applies to the standard lib use case you're talking about, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like I agree that there's like complexities here. Um, like I guess I feel like a build pack author would have to put in the work to figure all of this out when they build and package up their build pack. They have to like architect around it. It's like, okay, if I know I have these build packs and they all need to have this binary shipped with it, then I can make the decision to say, okay, like somehow they're all going to depend on this thing and it's going to get pulled in and is rebasable. Um, like I know we can't really solve this problem right now, but I guess if I somehow I don't know if this is going to be prioritized, but like let's just say that you know, we decide we want to put some time and energy into doing this. Like if I got a proof of concept where I, you know, without using Pack at all, just started pushing images to a registry and then did rebasing with Crane and just to kind of see like what does this process look like? What did it require from a build pack author? You know, like if do you think that it might take some changes in like the build pack TOML kind of like API to say, okay, let's allow an author to specify some fields or something that says X is rebasable. And then if they start specifying those fields, they can then fill in some information. Um, Again, this
What's
is
your
just like thinking
yeah
out loud, you know, I don't know.
yeah? What's your thought on build pack author versus platform on like the ownership of this? Like, because it's kind of I've been coming at it from the opposite side, where like the platform, the Google, the Heroku, the Tanzu Cloud, like they would build these golden layers and like maintain them in a private like Heroku's golden layers registry, and like that's where you would go find the Heroku 24 Ubuntu 2404 Node.js version 20. Like that's where the layer would be that you would then swap in. That's the latest patch node layer, versus the build pack author doing it. So I think that's the main thing I'm interested in figuring out is like where do we think as a project the this would
I,
be like. Yeah.
Hmm.
yeah, I think on the surface that makes sense to me in the sense that that is pro like when I think about the platform, that's also the place where to some degree like base images happen. Like whether you maintain or not, you control like the storage of it, whether you're like pulling it from Docker Hub or whatever, right? And I think that makes sense from the perspective of like, okay, if I'm using a build pack that has rebasable layers, I then also care that I like for the base images that I'm supporting, that those things exist, right? And so I don't care, let's say I have the Paketo build packs and you have, and like it works on a bunch of different base images, right? Um, like it is probably, I probably care that I only support like the one that runs in my company or whatever. And so I'm going to make sure those, rebasable layers exist, but I don't care. Nor do I want to like store or pull them like for all the like incarnations that are actually possible. But let's say I don't support ARM, right? And I don't care about multi-arch, and I actually only support x86 because that's what my company does. I shouldn't have to care about the work of like, oh, like for an exit like an ARM version of this thing. Like I don't need to deal with the maintenance or
Yeah.
upkeep of that. So I think
The
that
opposite
makes sense to
side
me.
is
Yeah.
like Buildpacks producing it. Buildpack authors means that if you trust the Buildpack author, then you implicitly trust the golden layers that they create effectively, right? Um, and it means that it works in like an OSS way without a platform doing it. I mean, Pack could do it, right? But that means like Pack's gonna have to, let's take Paketo, right? So if Paketo wanted to produce these, then it would basically be like if a pack built image from Paketo, it would maybe know that the Paketo golden layers are in that same uh, Buildpacks, Docker Hub account, and that's how it would like kind of figure out and where to do rebasing from. So when you run a pack rebase, it rebases the base image and also any of the golden layers, right? Like pack as a platform, kind of spider webbing out and figuring out which layers to replace without the without like a company doing it. But I guess pack those aren't. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's okay.
Sorry, just 1 second.
I feel like the target platform thing is less crazy than I think, in that if you put star in there,
Mm-hmm.
then in theory your layers that you're already building are already star compatible, so it should be pretty easy for you to,
Yeah.
in theory, do that,
In
right? But
theory, yeah, yeah. I know Google was also interested in this as well, like because we talked to him.
but I guess in practice you could do star because let's say you're like building a binary. And it just means like star could mean like you're using bash and you like aren't building a binary and like is generally compatible as long as bash is on the thing. But the other side of it could be like, let's say you're compiling like the Python binary for some reason, not pre-compiling it. That would also be star. You just do it, but then I think scaling that out for a rebasable layer, like let's say you want to be able to rebase Python or something, or the JDK or something like
I
that.
think we
Like,
have to have lots of protections here. Like even doing something like, let's say that you have a build pack that installs Git, like you run make install, everything's good. Like
but
if
that's
you end
dependent
up,
on the platform you're running that on.
yeah,
Even though in theory
exactly.
the build
There's
pack itself is
mhm,
compatible with like many things,
exactly.
like the
Yeah, it's
actual
like yeah,
artifact
because
output is
Git
different.
has like a million platforms. You go look at it and you're like, yeah, I can just run this build file anywhere. But whoever decides to make those golden images has to know that that's not true, right? Like you can't build it once on 2404 and then run it on 20. Like you're gonna get like
Yeah,
GCC
unless you're
errors,
gonna
right?
like figure out how to do the static linking.
Yep, exactly.
So I like the main problem, like the main use case, at least that Paketo's doing this is using this with is they have exec scripts, and because they want to support like tiny base images that don't have a shell, they compile these as binaries. So I understand why they did this, but then you're shipping something that then has to get patched when there's a vol in it. So I don't know that we like if there's I don't know that I would want to rebase like Python. Um, because like you've got
You probably would not.
yeah, I mean I wouldn't. I mean Paketo compiles it for on Ubuntu. And then like we have logic in there that says that if you're on a stack that's not Ubuntu, then we're going to compile it from source because you know it might not work exactly the same on Arch Linux or whatever. So and then you get into like pip is installed with certain with a certain version of Python installed. Like there's just all these gray areas where I wouldn't want to touch that. But I do think that there's like a limited use case where you could have these kind of like, these layers where they actually would be rebasable because they're really just shell scripts. They're just really shell scripts that are binaries, and set environment variables. Like that's not very complicated.
It sounds like you don't actually care where that's stored then. Like if we did the platform play, uh, it sounds like that would work for you.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was thinking about platform earlier, I was thinking pack. But when you say platform, that
I
means
mean I mean like the Buildpack platform operator person.
like whoever's building the base images and the builder
Yeah,
images.
exactly. So like your company would be the one that would go and like bit I think a good thing would be for us to figure out a way to like produce those layers, like for the platform to easily be able to produce those layers. Like Buildpack author would, whether that's just rerunning that thing or I don't know, we like it would probably be part of the RFC, you'd figure it out, right? But like
Mhm.
I would expect from the proposal Jesse's kind of saying is that uh there's a way for the platform operator who's running the Buildpack platform to be able to produce these layers and then shove them somewhere in a registry that then when you say, I want to rebase these layers, it knows how to, figure out the incantations of like how you reference the layers and stuff.
Yeah.
But basically, like that platform operator, because it has more concrete information of like what the output has to look like. Um, and maybe in your case, like it just doesn't matter because you're building a Go binary, so it's the same regardless of which platform. But I feel like the Git or whatever use case could be like, you can imagine some type of binary thing that is not like Python under the hood, but it's like maybe the thing I was saying, right? It's like we're providing a binary on behalf of the user. Um, Maybe for some really crazy reason we wrote it in C. I have no idea why we would do that. But then like that makes it not very compatible, but you are compiling it from source, right? Like the Python thing. But since it's like just targeted, like since we're running it just on our platform in Heroku, we know what kind of those base images and stuff are. So we know we can make a compatible thing. And maybe for us, that means we got to make one for each base image, right? Like, let's say we support Heroku generally supports like 3 base images for the various versions of Ubuntu for customers. And so that might mean we have to have 3 different rebaseable layers in theory, if it like is actually dependent on the base image.
Yeah. I mean, like honestly, the rebasing is the thing that like made like I didn't choose to work with build packs. This was like something that someone
Sorry.
you should work on this project because the person who was working on it before is leaving the company, and so here I am today. But the rebasing part is the best feature, but we have recently just been disappointed by it because like we can't rebase vulnerabilities in layers that we keep having to tell developers to have to go rebuild and redeploy their app. Like that rebuild and redeployment process is painful, and it's like to drain on, it's time and energy that we don't want to have to tell developers to go spend. We'd rather say,
Yeah, I would
hey,
love
Buildpacks is
to.
giving you all this cool stuff and you don't
Yeah,
even
if
have
you're
to
not
think about
against the platform version of this, like basically either platform operators having to, you can imagine a sort of like a TOML file that is basically like the Shaw digest of like the layers that need patching or something
it.
like that, right? Or like, and then like here's their current version that they need to have, and whether those point to a registry or something. Like they need to be. My only really constraint here is I think it should still be like OCI images
Yeah,
potentially,
absolutely. Yep.
because I want to be
Yeah.
able to reuse like some of the like layer sharing and stuff, so that when you do a git, when we create that manifest, we don't have to pull down those binaries because they could be really big. They're probably not very big in these cases that we're talking about,
No.
but if it already exists in an accessible registry, then that is savings for like at scale operators, right? Because it means that you don't have to pull down those bytes, you don't have to push up those bytes, because they
Yeah.
can already be mounted in registries that share those bytes already, that already have like a copy of that exact object. And so I think my own that's kind of where I'm thinking is if we can have an OCI artifact kind of list of like here are OCI artifacts, and then like if any of these are in this image after you've already rebased the base image, then like another round of rebase of like, hey, go replace these with those. And like obviously we have to do the architecture, the OS, make sure that we pull the artifact that has all the matching tags as much as we can, right? And to be as safe as possible. But as long as you're like okay with like that, then I think we can start to figure out like how we produce these, even if that is kind of a problem in the future. To Terrence's point, like you could just do a pack build and like trust it, like as an operator, be like, yeah, these images are my trusted images. I push them up to Paquetto's registry.
Yeah, the other thing it can solve, but is not the original intention, but you can get it if you go this path, is it's potentially a way to also do if it fits in the mold of like reshareable layers. Like I think that's like one of the kind of constraints today is like, okay, just saying they're not big, but they could be big, right? Like you might not be comfortable with Python, but I know how many times Pivotal slash VMware has come in and asked, like, how do I share my JDK, right? Like you can imagine a rebaseable JDK-ish layer that
Yeah.
could be built. And it's like, okay, if I can basically like blob mount that thing from the golden layer, wherever that's living, it means that now in a company that's standardized behind something like a JDK, like uh depending on how you feel, like you may not feel safe for basing it, but like some other people might. And so, that becomes a thing where like, okay, like now I don't ever actually need one JDK golden layer that every single kind of thing I can rebase kind of against for every single app, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really like that. I feel like if we made this feature available, I know that the scope is small, but like the possibilities for using it are actually pretty nice, like you just said. Um, so yeah, I mean, I feel like this might be worth diving
I
into.
think so
I
too.
wanted to ask another question, but go ahead, Jesse. You were going to say
No, no,
something.
no. I said I think so too. I think I'm super happy to help iterate on this with you because like I said, we've been thinking about it, and I think if we go in with like the focus of kind of a scalpel here and be like rebase can take an optional new set of toml file or arguments that allow this to happen right in this very specific way, and it's kind of up to the operator. Like pack rebase doesn't do it automatically, it doesn't, maybe you have to pass in some additional experimental flags and stuff. Like I think we can really find a very targeted way of doing this that is safe for operators who are willing to take this like sort of rebase risk, right? Because it is like a thing like you've got to have these images have to be these layers have to be safe because you're just going to plop them in the middle of a image and hope for the best. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the last part I was going to say, Juan, were you going to add something? I keep possibly.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask if this is something that is there something on the OCI spec, something on the image manifest or whatever, where we can just, mark or put some metadata there where we says these layers are rebaseable for whatever
You mean
platform
in the
consumer.
layer itself?
Yeah, I mean, if there is something on the spec already for the image, for the artifact that you push to the registry, if the problem is just we need to define something, some metadata that we need our platforms or to add based on whatever we defined on the Buildpacks bed or whatever. This Buildpack is going to produce something that is rebasable. Then when we build the artifact, then we just put something on the spec, on the image spec for that thing, and then whatever it's going to consume that then can read the metadata and do whatever it needs, right? We already add a lot of metadata, but I'm not sure if there is something specific for the layer. I was trying to check on the spec, but I'm not sure if the layer has something available there where we can add this metadata.
Yeah. Yeah, we've always assumed, or I've always assumed that pretty much right now we're going to have a list of digests because that's the absolute safest thing, right? Like these bytes replaced with these bytes, and like I don't know that we could probably add some more metadata, and we
Uh-huh.
probably will to make things like easy to think about, but that's sort of what we were thinking
The
about is like, you know,
the way rebase basically gets around the digest problem is you point to a tag thing, right?
well, you are
You
pointing
base
to a digest, but it's like the seam, right? Like it's one digest, so we store just like exactly one digest, which is kind of like the marker, right?
right, but I
So
just mean in the sense that like what you know to rebase to is because we know that thing points to a thing that can mutate, right? And essentially, it's not like when I rebase, I gotta like go look up the new like OCI digest for the thing I'm replacing, right? Like of course, like on the source side, like you need to know exactly what you're replacing, but on the like or on the like yeah, like I guess like we like point stuff to the like base image name and people re-push over that, right? And so we're able to easily rebase on that. So I wonder if we need a similar mechanism for some, and then I guess is like where the golden whatever kind of
Yeah.
reference for that stuff is like for those kind of layers that you build. And I think how it also probably has to be done is this has to be completely optional, right? In the sense that like if a build pack platform never wants to do this extra mile work because they don't have the infrastructure or the kind of team to support something like that, you can continue just to build and get a working thing, right? So obviously first push always has to work. So you can't like, I feel like rely or expect that rebase is going to happen to update this thing. Like I think going through the build path, I think that's like the assumption, right? Like none of this stuff is going to break that path. But then you need to be able to point to a thing that's like, okay, this is now a link thing similar to like the base image, right? And anytime I run rebase, if that thing has updated, I can just replace that layer with the one below or with the one there.
I mean, this, like, it sounds like we're thinking about ways to approach the problem, which is good because we're not saying this is not possible. We're saying, oh, how can we make this happen, which is good. Um, okay, one thing I was going to say is that so like the binaries are used in the execd scripts. So do you guys see any problem with that? Like, can we, like, if we end up writing it to a different path because it's not going to be in the layers folder, or are we just going to, like, is there any problem with that? Do we have to have a new path where those execds are being referenced and called from, or any potential issues with that?
I mean, it does need to be completely compatible with the layer that it's replacing. So I think moving paths is like not okay, right? Like if someone wanted to like that layer is slash layers slash build pack directory slash my cool binary, right? And like it needs to be that for ABI compatibility. Because to your point, the other layers are expecting it to be there. So like you would never be able to just change. I mean, you could change the path as long as but that's like your platform compatibility question, not like I think generally speaking, we would have to say something that it would like need to be ABI compatible in theory.
Okay, so the build pack author, when whatever, like if they're using libcnb or whatever
Yeah,
library they're using to package up their build pack, it's going to write it to the same path.
yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
That's what I would expect. Is that a problem for the exact use case? Seems like that is what you would want, right?
And we
I
also have
think,
system build packs, which don't have the slash, like they have different uh, abilities, right? Or different paths, maybe. Is that right? I think they maybe not.
yeah, but these wouldn't be system build packs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if yeah, if the layer is just going to write the same to the same file path, then we should be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I would expect to happen. Just because, like, if you've got like S bombs and stuff too, like, I think you're gonna want to rewrite your S bombs, and like, there is some stuff that we have to think about when we do rebase. Like, if you did have S bombs in that layer, and now you have S bombs in that layer again, like, I think we do some merging of S bombs. Maybe I don't know. There's some other like kind of gotchas that like are other layers produced from things that layer that has now changed. Like, does it invalidate anything beneath it, right? Beneath that layer. But I think that's the risk you take with replacing layers. Like, you just have to kind of make
I
sure
I
that
feel like
you
S-bombs aren't
describe those.
are independent though, right? Like S-bombs are
I
targeted
think
per
they
layer.
are. Yeah.
So I do think there's a thing where when you do the rebase, there's some expensive other operations besides just the lift and shift, but that's no different from like the base image changing out because the SBOM, well, I guess the benefit of base image is like there's no SBOM thing associated with base images, I believe
Yes.
still today, right? So
Yeah.
you get away with like basically not having to worry about it.
Exactly. And that's what I'm
But
saying.
but
Now
it
you kind of worry about it because you've got
but now
other
you
exec
kind
D
of have to,
scripts
right?
that could call your exec script or like, your binary and like on boot. And so like you don't really that's
Yeah,
where you kind
but
of have
like
to
I feel
do
like
it.
that's fine, right? Like if you have an
Yeah.
exec D script that gets called, if you literally are replacing it with a compatible thing, that's exactly what you want, right? But I think the SBOM thing is a good point in the sense that like in the use case I said for like the MCP EFI thing where we put a binary in, if you wrote an SBOM for that thing, like because of like maybe you probably like version or something, right? Like you probably want that layer to also include the SBOM stuff. Uh, and then somehow when you the like larger image that you're rebasing is not just a layer shift, you probably have to repackage like you probably have to like walk the tree and like redo the SBOM like packaging step, right?
Yeah, but
Across all layers.
and we're talking about the base image, not necessarily one of these rebasable layers.
No, I'm talking about the rebasable layers, right? The base image doesn't have an SBOM thing that's part of the life cycle, but
Okay.
like you
If
can
you're
imagine like
producing like an Nginx sort of like
yeah,
binary, like you want to let people know, like if the SBOM is visible to the customer, then you need to let them know when you rebase that it went from version 1.0 to 1.1, right? So they know they're patched.
Got it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, this is not like this layer would be something that customer doesn't care about at all. But yes, you're saying like if SBOM needs to be updated, it's up to the build pack author to go do that. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
needs to
it'd be
be
up
in
to
the
the build
golden
pack.
image, and then also the rebase needs to take that into account if there's any post processing that
Yeah,
happens, right? Like
exactly.
if there's like I don't know, like the metadata of the image itself might point to SBOM layers, right? Like I think it does, in fact, right? There's like an SBOM, like when you do a pack inspect, like it tells you the SBOM layers, and like that digest may need to also be updated because we changed that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we just have to make sure it's a valid image and that everything points where it should.
Yeah. So there's definitely like some work that is net new for that doesn't apply to base images, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it's all tractable. You just
Cool.
kind of have
Yeah.
to think through it
I
all.
think if the scope is really small, then it's less complicated. And then, we can kind of tackle like if SBOM has to be in scope. That's the thing. Like the layer I'm talking about has no SBOM. It's just one file. And if we start small, then I think it's easy to say, okay, how does this scale out? And like, is this really a good fit for your runtime? And SBOMs and all that stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to think about it because it definitely is one of those things that like SBOMs is actually one of the easier ones to think about. Like, what if you try to replace a layer that has, launch toml with processes, right? Um, those, if you suddenly remove a process that you were doing before, obviously we don't expect that this is the like main use case for it, but we'd either have to protect against it and say that that's not valid, like you cannot replace a layer that has like committed processes, or you have to be okay with it and just be like, well, it's up to the build pack author and the golden image creator or the golden layer creator to like make sure that they're compatible, and maybe that's okay. To your point, I think we can make a lot of rules and just be like, let's start small and just make it happen, and then like let the consequences be on whoever's creating the like
Yeah,
golden images.
I feel like it's like similar to the base image call where you're just like, well, you got to make sure you can rebase and that is safe and you're using a distro or, like version of the distro that they're releasing that is safe.
Yeah, oops, I
Um,
removed the binary. Like, not our problem, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. I do think my first thought was like, yeah, maybe you don't allow someone to rebase a layer that has launch TOML, but I was thinking like if you're actually inserting a binary, it's not crazy to like want a launch TOML that does it, but won't expect that launch TOML to probably be compatible if that's the case. It's like, but if I'm doing an ABI compatible kind of move, I feel like changing the metadata on that is like crazy town.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm trying to make it simple. It's like there's
yeah.
so much complexity we can
That's
get.
where I was talking about with the scalpel. Like, I think if we
Yeah.
just kind of make it a very like this digest gets replaced with this digest, then like we can start to kind of add guardrails later and like figure out like where these start to break down and like
I mean,
add
what
in some
guardrails do we
validation
put
check
around the
before.
base image? I feel like it's YOLO time,
Exactly,
man.
or never, right? I'm just saying, like, yeah, don't overthink it. Is what I'm saying. I think we should just do something.
Okay. I had one quick question. I know we're past time, so if you guys have to drop, it's fine. I mean, like, but if you have another second, I can ask it.
Sure.
So are we, I know stacks are deprecated, but Paketo is like heavily using them. Like all the tooling is centered around stacks. So like, um, and I think we're going to be moving to platform API version like 10 at some point. But is it going to be a problem at some, like, is it going to be an issue where when we update to like 12 or whatever, like we have to go and change all our tooling, and having the stack ID in there is going to be, producing an error, and we have to go like rework all of the build packs so that they remove stacks? Any concerns around that, or like timeline?
I don't think so. Like, I'm pretty sure we made it like backward and forward compatible. Like, you can have both for a while, like so that you can have an interim where like you
Yeah, I
could
don't think
go
we
ahead
error
and
it, if
yeah.
that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I
You
mean,
should
if
be able
it,
to go like you may have some work to go ahead and add the new stuff in your build pack tommels, but it shouldn't affect the old ones. And then like as you upgrade, it should just work. But
okay,
yeah,
cool.
do let us know if you run into any
Yeah,
problems with it.
there's no issues yet, but I just worry that like,
We
we
did
do
it,
all
and I
this
don't
work.
remember it being a problem, so like it should be fine.
Okay, cool.
All
All right.
right. I have a Paqueta question if you have a sec.
Yes, I do. Yep.
Um, we were using, we had a customer who was like looking at the CA cert build pack from Paqueta.
Mhm.
And I was curious. So when it was used with the Heroku node build pack, you had to set basically the node options to do like the dash dash use something CA option for so it like they basically have like their own private npm module thing kind of thing that requires their own CA cert. Like it's like pretty common, I think, in the enterprise kind of use case.
Mhm.
So like Node by default, if you don't pass that option, errors out. Uh, because it's like like you're using a self-signed cert, like this is not safe kind of thing. And so, like the whole point of the CA cert thing is that then like exposes pretty standardized. I'm actually kind of surprised NPM doesn't pick up on this by default because like it's documented in OpenSSL. So like if you set those basically file and path and directory mvars, which the CA cert build pack does, and like as a build mvar, right? It writes it out. And so other subsequent build packs in theory, pick up that MVAR, and then a lot of what the cursory research I've done is a lot of libraries and stuff will automatically pick up on those MVARs and like use them without you having to kind of set stuff. Um, and so I was having a discussion with our node language owner about like, should we automatically, if we see these MVARs, should we automatically like set basically this option for npm? Uh, and or maybe it's just Node. I think it's a Node option, not an npm option. But I think because they like have their own custom, it's like not custom, but like they vendor their own TLS kind of thing for Node, and don't rely on maybe the base image. I don't know why they do it differently. But I was curious if have you seen in the Paketo side, like I'm using CA cert and then does your node build pack automatically set this stuff, or is the user expected to kind of do that themselves? Like if they do that, then like it will break if it happens to be used there, and then you have to manually set that as an end user. Um,
Yeah. So I haven't used the CA certificates build pack myself personally, but I have seen some threads where I think people kind of expect it to automatically work. And then they have to go and make some manual changes. I'm pretty sure it was in Java that I saw these recently.
so is
Um,
this like every language you're expected to do this by hand that doesn't automatically pick it up? Is are
yeah, so
those
I don't I didn't I'm not an author of this build pack, and I'm not an
yeah.
expert on it, so I'm not going to try to say I am. I expected that if you're using this build pack, it will just do everything for you automatically, and it didn't seem like that was the case.
Yeah,
Is there
I
a-
would I understand why the CA cert build pack does not. Like I would like just thinking about build pack organization, like I wouldn't expect a CA cert build pack to preemptively like set, because it has to run before all the other build packs, right? For
Yeah.
language stuff, right? So I would not expect it to preemptively be like, I know how to configure Java node. Maybe it's like automatically picked up in Python, for example, right? But like whichever
Mhm.
ones aren't automatically picked up, I am going to manually configure that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like I guess I would expect on the other side, the like language build packs to recognize that there's a standardized environment variable and to automatically then set configuration kind of on the receiving side of that.
Yeah. I will need to do a little bit of research here because I'm not a Node.js expert. I've worked a lot more with Python, Go, and Java. Um,
Yeah, I think Python's actually one of the ones that automatically picks it up from my research. A lot of their HTTP libraries basically respect that MVAR.
yeah.
Um, But it would make sense that Java would not because they don't use OpenSSL. Like the reason I think anyone automatically picks it up is probably because you like use the OpenSSL like C extension kind of thing. So if you're using OpenSSL under the hoods, since
Mm,
OpenSSL automatically picks it up, of course, then your library will as well, right?
yeah.
I think that's like the actual reality of like why this is true. It's like it's not because the library author magically did a thing. It's because they wrote a C extension that depends on the thing that automatically does it. But then if you have any native implementation like a Java, like it is not crazy that it doesn't automatically do it, right? Because someone built it by hand.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know from Java, it's like you have different trust stores and it gets tricky.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, maybe that's why it's like that. It's probably all designed around Java, honestly. That's like,
I feel like that's just true of Paketo.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I'll look in the Slack channel and see if I can find anything. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you have, are you on Paketo Slack?
I don't think I am,
Uh,
but
I mean, like if you want to, I'm gonna have a hard time remembering this, but if you want to send me something in CNCF Slack,
yeah.
so I can like go and do some research, that would be helpful, just so I have like something to refer to. But we're talking about basically like how do we have Node uh, make use of the CA certificates?
Yeah, like it's only like setting a single MVAR in Node to get to automatically pick up. And I guess I'm just curious, like, does Paketo try to be proactive about it? Which was like kind of my default reaction, was like, oh, like regardless, like what CAC is doing is it's doing a very standardized thing. I don't have to like the concern was like we don't want to do a thing that's like tied to the CACert build pack. But like the case I was making is like what CACert is doing is it's installing stuff in a place as layers, right? And then it's just setting some MVARs. And these MVARs are basically respected by OpenSSL. So like it's documented in their man page, like these MVARs, blah, blah, blah. Like if they're there, I'll automatically use them. And at that point, it feels like a standardized interface. And I was curious, like, what does Paketo do here? Or am I like basically trying to push a thing that I potentially shouldn't be on the
No,
Heroku side?
I don't think you're doing anything. I just don't know that anyone in the Node community is like doing this, but maybe like I'll go and look through Slack. Basically, oftentimes people who are doing stuff and they have problems, they just go into Paketo Slack and start posting stuff. So I learned a lot from doing
So
searches. And so
searching in Slack, that's
yeah,
fair.
so if I can find something and like thankfully we still have all the history. So yeah, I'll see if I can find something. And if I don't, then I mean like maybe it just requires, you know, whoever's using it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine. To go and
cool.
kind of set things up.
Yep, cool.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'm glad I joined this call. And you'll be hearing from me about this crazy rebasing idea that I have.
Yep, cool.
All right,
All right.
guys.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank
Bye.
you. See ya.